They deserved to win this game. It wasn't like they got outplayed and Swayman stood on his head. He made one fantastic save off the stick of Hagel, which could have changed things. That would have made the game 1-1. It was still 1-0 at the time. So
They're going to make the playoffs? They're going to trade everybody away and make the playoffs, which I wouldn't bet, but I don't entirely rule out because it's hockey. We'll get to all of that. It's Matt McCarthy. How you doing? This is a huge night. We've got the Celtics coming up, 8 o'clock tonight. We will get you game ready for Celtics and Lakers. One of the biggest games of the regular season. It comes your way 2 hours from now. Grandy and Max tip off just after 8:30 tonight. We'll get you game ready for that. So phone lines open on the Celtics at 617-779-0985. A major offseason blow for the Patriots just going down a few minutes ago. Ronnie Stanley, left tackle, the left tackle on the market. Turns out, not hitting the market. Heading back to the Ravens. 3 years, $60 million, $44 million guaranteed. Ronnie Stanley out for the Patriots. Where do they pivot? Where do they go? The NFL offseason hasn't even started yet, and it feels like things are getting worse and worse for the Patriots by the day, which we can get into. And your thoughts at 617-779-0985. But I do want to start with the Bruins tonight. This hour of the Sports Hub brought to you by Awaken 180 Weight Loss. With a 98% customer satisfaction rating and thousands of 5-star reviews, the choice is clear, awaken180weightloss.com. I don't want to overreact to what the Bruins just did. I think today is more about Tampa Bay than it is about the Bruins. RJ and Bob were all over it during the broadcast. Tampa Bay didn't show up in this one. The Bruins obviously, burned the thing down yesterday. Tampa's been on a great roll, and they didn't show up today. And they overlooked the Bruins, and the Bees took advantage. So you give them some credit for that. And, some of the new players played pretty well. We'll get into that as well. But today is about Tampa Bay. This game in particular is about Tampa Bay because of everything that happened yesterday. They overlooked you. 1 out of 82, they overlooked you. Let's see how the Bruins look moving forward. I'm not convinced they're going to look significantly worse than they've looked all year long. Which you might call crazy, given you just traded Brad Marchand, Charlie Coyle, and Brandon Carlo in the last 24 hours. Frederick and Brazo out the door as well in the last week. You might say that's crazy. Those are 5 players out the door, and you are certainly not a better hockey team on paper. I get that. I understand that. But this is still hockey, where if you bring in some guys and they have something to prove, you can get a bit of a boost from that. You can get a jump, a bounce. You saw it earlier this year. The new coach bounce. Bruins benefited from that for about 2 weeks. The reporting that there were problems in the locker room. Bruins got a bounce from that. That lasted for, 2 weeks? So if the Bruins get a bounce from this, from the middle stats of the world coming in and having something to prove and wanting to show your new team that you belong here, you're fighting for a job, you're fighting for a reputation, whatever that may be, I would not be surprised if the Bruins got a bounce coming out of this for a week or two before the problems then resurface again. And the problems are talent. And they're even less talented than they were 24 hours ago. Just something to keep an eye on. Does that mean they're going to make the playoffs? Probably not. But I'm not convinced their chances are significantly worse than they were yesterday. They're worse, undeniably. You remove talent from a roster that's going to catch up with you in the end. But I wonder if they get the new roster boost. They got the new coach bounce earlier this year. That only lasts so long. But I wonder if they're going to get the new roster bounce for a few days here. I'm curious about that. 617-779-0985. Phone lines open. To what the Bruins did yesterday. Had to be done. No doubt about it. It had to be done. And what I was taken aback by is some of the blowback I've heard over the last 24 hours about what the Bruins have done. And I think a lot of Bruins fans are upset. They are not happy with the fact that the Bruins traded Brad Marchand. They are not happy with the return that they got for Brad Marchand, a conditional second 3 years from now. They are not happy with the fact that the Bruins burned the thing down, but I think in particular They're not happy with the fact that Brad Marchand was traded. And I'm sorry, I can't get on board with this. I can't see where you're coming from. You can call in, tell me I'm crazy, tell me I'm wrong. What are you looking at? What are you talking about if you have a problem that the Bruins traded Brad Marchand? I get it. He's an all-time player. He's an all-time Bruin. 63 belongs in the rafters someday. But the blowback and the pushback that I heard yesterday and have heard over the last 24 hours is kind of the proof that the fans should never really run things. You're letting your emotional attachment to this player, and you should be emotionally attached to this player. He's an all-time Bruin. This era is, for the most of us out there, the best era of Bruins hockey we've had in our lives. But I can't understand people saying, why'd you trade Brad Marchand? What are you talking about? This team isn't going anywhere. He's 36, 37 years old. He's going to be a free agent. And there were issues with the negotiation. Emily Kaplan reporting today that the Bruins put a 3-year deal on the table for Brad Marchand in February, but the Tides had different perspectives on money. John Buccigross tweeting out earlier today that it was, $2-3 million a year for Brad Marchand? That's what the Bruins were offering. That's exactly what they should have been offering. He's not worth more than that. To this team, right now, Brad Marchand is worth it if your team is contending for a Stanley Cup and he can be a role player. Because Marchand came up in the league as a role player, developed into a superstar, but is totally willing to play that role. A role that you ask him to play, third liner on a Stanley Cup winning or Stanley Cup capable team. That is what Brad Marchand is at this point in his career. The Bruins are not that. They are not capable of winning a Stanley Cup. They need to go into a reset, a rebuild here, which they recognize and they understand, and they started that process in a significant way yesterday. Brad Marchand was not, and more importantly, should not be a part of that. He's more valuable to somebody else than he is to you at this point. This was the right decision. Undeniably a painful decision. It's the guy with the last name on the cup has gone out the door. That's a sad day. Yesterday was a sad day as a Bruins fan, but it doesn't mean it wasn't the right day, and it doesn't mean it wasn't the right decision. And I just don't understand the pushback that I've heard from Bruins fans over the course of the last 24 hours. Hey, McCarthy, they didn't get enough. What were you expecting? Serious question. What were you expecting the Bruins to get for a player who is 36, 37 years old, is hurt, is not the player he once was, and who knows what he's going to be when he returns? Not to mention, you did right by him by apparently working with him on his destination, which is showing Brad Marchand respect and deference for what he has done for this organization, which is kind of what I'm hearing from the fans. We don't want Brad Marchand gone because he's our guy. Well, you know what? They kind of took care of him in some ways by sending him out the door. You want to let him walk this summer? Because in the end, do you want to commit to Brad Marchand for 3 years? It sounds like the Bruins were willing to get there. I think they dodged a bullet on that. I do. I think they dodged a bullet. If you were contending for a cup, if you had that type of team, and you want to bring Brad Marchand back on the Patrice Bergeron, David Krejci, Zdeno Chara type deal, the 1 year, the 1 year, the 1 year, let's keep trying to run it back, let's keep trying to extend this window by 1 more year, 1 more cup, 1 more cup, 1 more push to it. You want to do that? If you were in that phase, I'm all for it. I understand it. I get it. But let's pay attention to what's really going on here. This team needed a fire sale. And they started that process yesterday. And yes, Brad Marchand was a part of that process. And yeah, you didn't get what you probably feel he was worth because of what he means to you as a Bruins fan. But let's try to look at it critically. Let's try to look at it without Bruins colored glasses on. And I know that's a hard thing to do. We're all fans. We all love Brad Marchand. It was the right thing. It was the right thing. And honestly, the return, given the player that he is right now, and given the injury, which is the most important factor in all of this, and given that he's a free agent, you did okay. Yeah, you have to bump the pick out 3 years, but if Florida goes to the conference finals and he plays in, 50% of the games leading up to that, you're getting a first-round pick 3 years from now? That's not bad for a guy who's hurt and a guy that you probably didn't want to extend or shouldn't wanted to have extend and is not going to be a part of anything this year. Bruins did all right by it. To you, 617-779-0985. We're also on YouTube tonight. That's my understanding. Got a YouTube stream going. This is a big night. Ronnie Stanley. Bruins trade deadline fallout from yesterday. Celtics, Lakers. We'll do it all. It's McCarthy until 8 o'clock on the Sports Hub. guy, you burned it down. You traded your captain, which is a massive deal in hockey. You traded core pieces. Coyle's a core piece. Carlo's a core piece. Frederick's a core piece. Which actually speaks to the problem that you had is your core wasn't good enough. If we're talking about those guys being true core pieces. And they did all of that, most of it yesterday, and they did most of that in the last week. And it was needed.
We didn't burn it down.
You did, Don. You did. You burned it down. And I'm going to applaud you for grabbing the matches because that was needed. So I will give ownership, I will give Neely, and I will give Sweeney a lot of credit for doing to me what had to be done. That's a really hard thing. You know, especially given the standards around here for the last 20 years. I'm talking, you know, the Bruins in general, but also in this town. Fire sales are not supposed to happen too often in Boston, but I'll give the Bruins credit for this one because it hasn't happened in 20 years. I mean, this is the biggest thing they've done from a trade perspective in regards to sending guys out of here since the Joe Thornton trade. And yes, the Sagan trade's, you know, part of that too, but I mean, they were still contending, they were still competing at that time. This signals that we are resetting the whole thing. We need to rebuild our core. This era is over. It's done with. And that's a hard thing to admit. That's a hard thing to say. And I think that's why a lot of Bruins fans are upset by the way yesterday went down. But it needed to happen. And for an ownership group that has presided over 20 years, pretty damn close to 20 years, of nothing but success. Playoff team after playoff team after playoff team. And obviously they've fallen short almost every single time in regards to winning a Stanley Cup, but they are a consistent, steady organization that doesn't do this type of stuff. And to me, that should be applauded. I mean, that is a good thing about the Boston Bruins. For them to get to this point where they're burning it down, it's the first time they've done it in 20 years. And that's a hard thing to do. But to me, that's an ownership group and a front office that's looking at things they're giving a hard look at this.
We didn't burn it down.
Don, you did.
How bad, for everything that you just outlined, Matt, how ugly do you think it was, like, behind the scenes? Because there's an argument to be made that they probably should have thought about doing this a couple of years ago. Like, how untenable was it in their offices, at their scouting meetings, you know, when one of the Jacobs drops in, Cam Neely's walking around probably cranky. Like, how bad did it finally get where they're like, okay. And look, I know Don Sweeney said, we didn't start the day planning on doing this, but we were prepared to do it, which I don't necessarily believe. But how bad do you think it finally got before they're like, look, we have to rip this Band-Aid. It's over.
Yeah, I mean, there have been stuff going on behind the scenes, I think. You know, I mean, obviously with the coach, I mean, first and foremost, this year has been a disaster from the jump. From the Swayman thing in training camp, Jim Montgomery playing footsie with the St. Louis Blues all summer long, and then finally ending up there, basically begging to get fired. And so they made a mistake there. They made a mistake, obviously, bringing in Lindholm and Zadorov. But in some ways, and I'm not here to defend that move, those moves, because they have failed and the results are all that matters. But the Lindholm and Zadorov thing is that was them trying to address their needs and trying to continue to build a winner, which they have done for 20 years. I mean, again, they've only won one cup in the last 20 years. Let's use this era, you know, let's just say 20 years in general, right? I mean, kind of going back to, you know, Chara coming to town in, you know, 06, 07. You know, they have been pretty consistent. They have been in the playoffs just about every single year for the last 2 decades. And for them to tear it down is obviously a reflection of the way that things were going behind the scenes. But most importantly, it's a reflection of the way that things went on the ice. How could you watch this team this year and say, this thing is headed in the right direction? And we've got, you know, building blocks and pieces and all that. You couldn't do it. So I give them a lot of credit for not burying their heads in the sand and ignoring what is obvious to, I think, a lot of us.
Guys, we've extended Brad Marchand. He's back for 4 years.
But that would be an easy thing for them to do.
Of course it would.
Because that's an easy thing to sell to the fans. If you were to poll Bruins fans, and you're welcome to offer your thoughts at 617-779-0985, if you were to poll Bruins fans, the majority of them are pissed. They're pissed at them for trading their captain. They're pissed at them for trading Brad Marchand, which really, to me, means a lot of Bruins fans. I think the majority of Bruins fans are burying their head in the sand on where this team really is. And I give ownership and the front office credit for recognizing that they couldn't go about it that way. They did the right thing yesterday.
It's total tough love from an organization that, and yes, I agree with you, Matt, there. I like the Lindholm move in the offseason. I'm like, okay, you need this guy. I didn't know Zadorov, but I have generally liked the moves that Don Sweeney has made in order to try and improve this team. The stuff that I can't ever wrap my head around is, let's bring Patrice Bergeron back for one more year. Let's beg David Krejci to come back and help this team. Let's let Tuukka Rask come back and rejoin. I felt like there's been a necessity to move on from that old era that you just outlined, which only missed the playoffs, by the way, I think 1, 2, 3, 4 times in the last 20 years.
Right. I mean,
so they've
15, 16. Yeah. Right. There was the, down year there in the middle. No, you're right. I mean, and that's why one of the many reasons, Ryan, is that they haven't wanted to move away from this thing. I mean, in some ways that is the Bruins business model, right? We know ownership believes in the home playoff gate. So for them to do something that hurts their chances to get home playoff games, to make the playoffs at all, that's a hard thing for this ownership group, I think, to do. And I give them a lot of credit for doing the right thing, because it would have been wrong to stand pat. It would have been wrong to not get what you can for Coyle, to not get what you can for Carlo. And they got a really good return for Carlo. To not get what you can for Brad Marchand. That would have been wrong. And they did the right thing. The vision is right. But I still have questions about the people executing the vision. Like, those are two different things.
Those are fair questions. And with every great championship team that comes, eventually a bill has to get paid. Regardless of the sport, you inevitably sell out, and as Don Sweeney said as we were coming back, you have to spend a lot of draft capital, and eventually there is a bill that needs to get paid. And I just feel like the Bruins have kind of been pushing that bill year after year down the line. And I enjoyed 2021 when they were like the best team in hockey. I enjoyed that, but also stepping back and going, let's appreciate this now, but also big picture, this might not be the best thing for this organization long term.
But that was okay. That was okay that they went all in 2021. Because
how could they not?
It was there. I mean, they had a historic regular season, and it was the last go round. Really, I mean, that was the whole point, and it blew up in their face. But I don't hold that against them. And now we've gotten to a point. 2 years later,
the Bills do.
The Bills do, and they've started to pay that bill yesterday, which to me is good. 617-779-0985. Andy in Hudson. What's up, Andy?
Hey, what's going on, guys? So I got a lot. You guys say a lot of stuff. First of all, that best record was 22-23, and
right.
Your partner there just said he didn't want to have Bergeron back for that year, and that was the year they should have contended for a cup, except inexplicably Montgomery's choices. I think you got to go with this. You're giving them all this credit. I don't give Don Sweeney any credit, and I'll back that all the way back. I'm not going to go with the easy first 3-round draft picks that he messed up on. How about going after Rick Nash, who retires at the end of the year, instead of Ryan McDonough, who played today? That would have solidified our defense big time with Chara and then McAvoy.
Yeah, Andy, I'm not defending how the Bruins have gotten into this spot, because Don Sweeney is a huge part of that. And this roster isn't good enough, and that's on Don Sweeney. But what he did yesterday was right. If you want to say that you don't trust Sweeney to get it right moving forward, hey, I'm with you on that. I like the vision. This is about the vision that the Bruins outlined yesterday. It was time for a change. It was time for a fire sale. It was time to move on from that era. They did that. Do you want Don Sweeney being the guy trying to rebuild the thing? I don't. But the Bruins have signaled that it will be Don Sweeney. The old public vote of confidence came down from Charlie Jacobs today. We'll get into that and to you. One open phone line, 617-779-0985. Your thoughts on the Bruins trade deadline.
We didn't burn it down.
Very much, Don. You burned it down, and that's good. Keep burning it down, baby. I wish Morgan Geekie were gone. You didn't burn enough down. Let's get some gasoline and burn some more stuff. Pyrotechnics, baby. More on the Bruins. Ronnie Stanley on the board as well, and we'll get you game ready for the Celtics tonight. It's McCarthy on the Sports Hub.
More Matt
Wrap that meat.
Matt McCarthy on the Sports Hub.
I mean, the ownership has always been supportive in the mandate of getting better. Ultimately, when you're not in the position you need to be and are expected to be, then what are the changes you can make first and foremost, and the ones you want to make is paramount, because those two things sometimes are different. Sometimes you want to do things that don't materialize, and you have to wait and be patient. Ownership was acutely aware of every move that we're making for the right reasons that we hope all turn out. We know we're sort of taking a step back in the course of the season because we haven't been to the level we need to be, but the mandate is like, hey, let's get this right and make the right decisions moving forward, and today was part of that. It wasn't coming in today and saying we're doing every one of these moves. They have to present and materialize. And to Ags's point of saying teams were aggressive, and does that present an opportunity? And it does. It doesn't mean you have to pull it and execute it, but it does present an opportunity, and that's what that's really what our fan base needs to hear, that we're trying to put things in a position where we're right back in that competitive mode set very next year and doing things right.
Don Sweeney called yesterday a mandate from ownership, which I think is a good thing. Ownership is involved, and it appears, based on those comments, that they guided the Bruins in the right direction. It's Matt McCarthy here until 8 o'clock. We'll get to the Celtics. We'll get to the Ronnie Stanley news as well. But comments from Charlie Jacobs today. Tweet from the Bruins. Statement from Charlie Jacobs. Quote, "In Boston, we've been fortunate to witness the rise of generational talent who fostered a culture of excellence within our locker room and led our club to victory. Brad Marchand, our captain, Stanley Cup champion, and Bruin of 16 years will forever be a part of that legacy. While we made our best efforts to keep Brad in black and gold for the rest of his playing career, he now embarks on the next chapter of his journey." Then Charlie goes on to thank and congratulate Brad Marchand's family. He then gets to this part, which is the most important part. Quote, "Cam, Don, and the hockey operations team have my full support as they make these very difficult decisions, which we collectively believe will set our franchise up for a new era of success in the future. Our goal remains unchanged, to be a Stanley Cup championship-driven organization. Together, we are charting a course for the next century."
You think he means
Unquote.
Don Sweeney?
What do you mean?
That's the joke. I hope he means a different Don.
Oh, yes. Cam, Don, and the hockey operator. Yeah, you're
The
Don.
fire starter.
Yeah,
Don Sweeney.
Don Finucci. Yeah. No, he absolutely means Don Sweeney. Don Sweeney's keeping his job. There's a difference, right? There's the real public vote of confidence, and then there is the fake public vote of confidence before you fire a general manager, before you fire a manager, before you trade a player. That is a real vote of confidence, to me, from Charlie Jacobs. And what tells you that is the actions of yesterday. Don Sweeney, if his job were on the line, he would not have blown it up. He would not have done what he did yesterday, period, end of story. If Don Sweeney needed to save his job by getting this team to the playoffs, which we all understand is the Bruins' business model. Coaches get fired and GMs only get fired when you start missing the playoffs. The Bruins are in line to miss the playoffs. If Don Sweeney felt in any way that his job were in jeopardy, he would not have gone as far as he did yesterday. So, in a way, to me, ownership is doing the right thing here. If you're going to blow it up, you have two options. One, you have to fire your GM before you blow it up. Or two, you back your GM completely and give him the security to blow it up himself. You cannot middle it. And the Bruins did not middle it yesterday. If you do not back the GM in that spot, he is not going to go all the way. And Don Sweeney, outside of trading Morgan Geekie yesterday, pretty much went all the way. Now, personally, I would move on from Don Sweeney. That would be my approach. But the Bruins are not going to do that. So they've done, in my opinion, the next best thing, which is to empower the current GM you have, and that's going to lead him to doing the right things from a vision standpoint. And yesterday's vision was, we need to reset. We need to rebuild. We need to cut ties to this era. Marchand out. Carlo out. Coyle out. Don Sweeney's not doing that if his job is on the line.
And the thing that, and I cannot believe I'm actually going to say these words, but I will, is I think with the way that on March 8th at almost 7 o'clock, the way that things make sense for the Bruins going forward might be to keep Don Sweeney, because I would not want to be the guy that has to come in after Don Sweeney and look around and go, oh my God, what happened here? Why does it smell like smoke in here? Oh, because you just burned this whole place down. And now I'm the new guy. I'm the new GM with, now knowing the Bruins, they would probably find someone who has ties to the team, but let's assume it's just a guy off the street. Now I got to figure out how to get this team back into some form of not even a Stanley Cup, but just a playoff contender with what I have left around me. I think holding on to Don Sweeney right now, draft stuff aside, but just evaluating pro talent might be, in the short term at least, Matt, going forward in the short term, the best thing for the Bruins if the business model for the Jacobs is just get us back to the second round.
See, I don't think it is the best thing for the Bruins because I think Don Sweeney's era should be done. If you're rebuilding a team, he shouldn't be that guy. But it's obvious that the Bruins are going to give him another crack at it. So given that, they have done the right thing by empowering him and giving him security. Now,
sure, but
I would have fired him
passed that
before all
exit
this.
years ago. In the time where you probably should have moved on from him, we're beyond that. Now it's how do we put all of this together? And do you want a guy that might be a little more familiar with the pieces that you have if more moves have to be made in the offseason, or somebody fresh off the street who might not have the sense of knowing what the Providence Bruins have, what the bottom six guys look like on the team?
The answer is nothing. The Providence Bruins have nothing. The Boston Bruins have nothing. And they've got two paths moving forward. This offseason is going to be more about free agency. They've got close to $30 million they can spend. Obviously, Sweeney is not coming off a good offseason with Lindholm and Zadorov, so that should shake your confidence there. He has certainly had plenty of hits with NHL-level talent, too, so I at least have a little bit more faith in him to get the NHL talent portion of it right. But this team will go nowhere in the future if they don't figure out how to draft. And Don Sweeney's still going to be in charge of that, and that's a problem. That's a big problem. But they did the right thing yesterday. The first step was the right step. 617-779-0985. Will in New Hampshire. What's up, Will?
I agree with you here. And two sentiments. One, that I loved Marchand. He was a rat, but he was our rat. And I wish that he was a legacy player and got to retire Bruin, but I'm glad they got something for him and the rest of the guys that they shipped out. The thing that I'm sick of, just like he was half measures. There's no identity to this team. It felt like, we got skill players like Pasta and Lorai and McCoy, or McAvoy, excuse me, and then we're going to go and we're going to moneyball the rest of the defense and just say, okay, anybody who's over 6'4", 210, we're going to put on date. And if you're going to burn the house down, build it up with the same decor. Like, come up with an identity, something that you want to do, have a consistent identity in terms of your talent evaluation, and build the team that way. Now that they have, obviously they misread how to handle the goalie position, which is a little more like NFL running backs. Get a platoon of a couple of guys, and if you have an established top five guy, you play him. And you see no appreciable difference between the two goalies right now, even though you're paying one $86 million. I want to see a single identity that they're moving forward with for the long term, and they have to show that in free agency this year.
It's going to take a while to find that thing, though, because there's nothing left. So when Don Sweeney says he didn't burn it down, he burned it down. And that was one of the many reasons you had to move on from Marchand, because it is time to start finding your new identity. Your identity cannot be anymore, well, this guy has his name on the cup from 2011. 2011 is 14 years ago. It's time to move past that thing. To Ryan's point, it's probably been time to move past that thing for a couple of years now. Yesterday was the first start in that process. And I know that's a hard thing for a lot of Bruins fans to take. You read my Twitter mentions from yesterday. McCarthy.
Really positive?
Not great. People crushing the Bruins for trading Marchand. The Marchand trade had to be done. Why? No, the Marchand trade did not have to be done at all. Why is the Marchand trade a good one? He should have retired with the Bruins. They should have gotten rid of the front office.
That's the mentality that I am talking about, that I can't understand, is why. And I'm not trying to parrot the afternoon show, but why does somebody have to retire with the team that he's been on if he has nothing left to offer this team? Tom Brady didn't retire as a Patriot. Boston, you got to get that out of your head. You can get something tangible for Brad Marchand, you could do it, because this team currently constituted with Brad Marchand still here isn't doing anything.
Bobby Orr did not retire a Boston Bruin. I'm sorry, anybody can leave. If Bobby Orr can leave, if Tom Brady can leave, Brad Marchand's not Bobby Orr or Tom Brady. He's not. More of this. McCarthy, why exactly did they have to give away their captain to a division rival for nothing in return? McCarthy, they should have just held on to him and kept negotiating with him.
You couldn't beat Florida when he was here.
I expected more, which means don't trade him. There's nothing confusing about this. That's not even talking about the cultural effects this will have. You're missing the point. Yes, it's going to have a cultural effect by removing him. And that's nothing against Brad Marchand. That's nothing against his leadership. That's nothing against the player. That's nothing against the guy. Yes, the cultural effects. You're missing the point. That's exactly why you do it. You're not going anywhere. Why are you holding on to the past? The great Tony Soprano once said, remember when is the lowest form of conversation. That's what you're doing today, Bruins fans. Remember when. Oh, remember when he came up? That was quick, Ryan. Well done. You must have that ready to go.
I found it.
Just let that roll. Oh.
I had to make up from playing the highlight from the wrong Bruins game coming out of the top of the hour.
This is more than a way to make up for that.
You remember when?
You remember when?
Patrice Bergeron came back and David Krejci came back and they were going to do Zdeno Chara year to year, and we had two goaltenders, but let's get Tuukka Rask out there because he was a remember when.
Yep. Remember when they brought back Milan Lucic to be a... No, I need a little more of that. Remember when they brought back Milan Lucic to be a mascot? And then he got arrested?
Oh, I remember.
Can we cut it out? It's a sad day yesterday. Sad day as a Bruins fan. But it was a good day. Given where they're at, it was a good day. 617-779-0985. Phone lines have been hard to get. Couple open lines right now. Grab them. We continue. It's McCarthy on the Sports Hub.
Stay tuned for more Matt McCarthy on the Sports Hub.
Gear up at Monkey's.
With 617-779-0985. I think the next captain of the Boston Bruins has to come from outside the organization. And you can say that's a shot at Pastrnak. I guess it probably is, just a little bit. But I think they need to quit this thing. They need some outside ideas. They need an outside personality. They need an outside leader. It's over. It's done. Chara, Bergeron, Krejci, Marchand, Rask, Coyle at this point, Carlo, guys who have been in that room for a long time. Grzelcyk's gone. Just about everybody who's been in that room is gone. McAvoy's hurt. Swayman's there. Who knows how the team feels about him? Probably not great based on the way the offseason went, based on the way training camp went. And Pastrnak. It is David Pasternak's team. And I just don't think that's good enough. I think their next captain needs to come from outside the organization. The same way that they needed to bring in a Zdeno Chara-like figure 20 years ago, they are in that spot now. And that's how the Bruins got out of the bad spot of the early to mid-2000s. They signed Chara, they signed Savard, and they developed players. Bergeron obviously had been here going back to, 2002. Krejci, Marchand, Lucic, that whole core came up under that leadership group because you went outside the organization. You traded your captain, Joe Thornton. You went outside the organization. You signed Zdeno Chara, and you were off and running. I'm not saying you do that easily. I'm not saying that's done overnight. The Zdeno Chara signing is one of the most important moments in the history of the Boston Bruins, bringing him from outside the organization into this organization. That's where they're at right now. And if they think it's going to come from within, it's not. It's just not.
And it lets David Pastrnak, I don't want to say off the hook necessarily, like he would still probably be an alternate captain. But then at that point, all Pasta has to do is just worry about the on-ice stuff. Worry about scoring, 40, 50 goals. Be the player that Bruins fans have known you to be this elite wing. And let somebody else, maybe it's Charlie McAvoy, I don't know. I'm more inclined to agree with you, though, Matt, is that your probably best bet is to get someone from outside who has a fresh perspective on things, and let your star players who might not necessarily be great leaders, like Brad Marchand, for instance, let them focus on just winning hockey games. Let them focus on, being one of the boys and being a good teammate, and let a captain come in here and worry about the leadership stuff and worry about the culture setting and not putting the puck in the back of the net.
Here's the problem. I'm looking at the free agents.
Really good?
Not so great.
It's not good?
This doesn't feel like a great list, a great crop, and a great class of free agents, which in some ways, if you're relying on free agency to rebuild your team, you're going to be dependent and at the mercy of the market and what's out there. The Bruins were so lucky when you think about it. After trading away Joe Thornton 20 years ago, which it's the only real comparison I think we can make to the Marchand move. They let Chara walk at the end, and Chara wanted to come back here, and they didn't want him back, but you could hand things off to Bergeron, and obviously they were no worse for the wear without Chara. And then Bergeron retired, but you could hand things over to Marchand, and they had a pretty good year last year. So, that they were able to get away with that. If you're now needing to look outside the organization for not only talent, but leadership, culture, all of those things, you are at the mercy of what the market has to offer at this time. Mitch Marner is right up there. You're laughing back there. Maple Leaf.
It's not even that he's a Maple Leaf. It's just I feel like while the Bruins are having their own issues, like Toronto Maple Leafs are like, yeah, see? Sucks, doesn't it? Yeah, this is what life has been like being a Maple Leafs fan all these years where we can't get over the top either. And we have questions about our top guys, too. That's why I laughed.
Let's see. I'm looking at the rest of the list here. So Mikko Rantanen was the number 2 guy on the list. He's now re-signed. Or has signed with Dallas.
Dallas, and there was a reason he didn't get brought back, and he was available too.
So if you run down the list, it's a lot of older guys. There isn't the Zdeno Chara-like figure out there. Aaron Ekblad's 28. He's 3 on the list. Ehlers, Tavares is 34. Brock Besser, Brock Nelson. I'll stay away from Brock Nelson. Thank you.
Also just got traded.
Jacob Chychrun is 26. Claude Giroux, 36. Matt Duchene, 33. Listen, you want to bring in, a Claude Giroux type, a Matt Duchene, a John Tavares, and because they're veteran guys. Okay, all right, we can have that discussion, but that's not going to be your captain for the next 10 years. You need to find that thing, and it's just not out there. That Zdeno Chara-like figure, to me, just isn't out there. So that's going to be something they're going to have to figure out. Yes, they've got the money. They've got close to $30 million in cap space. But if you have money in an offseason where it doesn't feel like maybe there's a lot that you'd really, really need, there isn't quite that fit, that's a tough spot to be in.
You might have forgotten one name, by the way.
What name?
We haven't completely ruled out the idea of a reunion with the captain.
I'm good.
I'm good. It's out there. Thanks. It was broached, Brad Marchand, and it would be such a Bruins thing to do to send him, and you got a cup run in you, and you get to see whatever. You're in Florida, it's good for the kids, all that crap. But I would not put it past this team to then turn around in the summertime and go, hey, everybody, guess what? Brad Marchand's back, and everything is just the same as it was last year.
So the reporting on Marchand today is the Bruins extended their offer to 3 years. In February. Emily Kaplan had this report for ESPN earlier today. There was a gap in the term, as Don Sweeney talked about yesterday. That gap, I guess, was closed in February when the Bruins extended their offer. My guess is they were at 2 years. Marchand wanted 3. The Bruins were willing to go to 3 years on Brad Marchand, which to me would have been a mistake. So I think they dodged a bullet on
Just
this.
Had a gap.
Yes, they did have a gap. As they should have had a gap. 3 years is too much for Brad Marchand at this point. He's not the player he once was. And it sounds like I'm crapping all over Marchand and he's not a good player anymore. Marchand can absolutely play a role, just not on a team that is expecting him to be one of their best players.
No, Stanley Cup contender? Sure.
He's a perfect fit for Florida. Perfect fit. Marchand, Tkachuk, just a bunch of rats. Oh, he fits perfectly there.
What's that first conversation with Sam Bennett going to be like? Oh my God.
They'll be fine.
I'm sure. You know what?
Marchand and
Honestly,
Johansson
you're
were
probably
fine.
right.
After Marchand injured Johansson badly, Johansson came here in 2019. They were fine. This is hockey. Everybody's good.
We're wearing the same sweater now. We have the same goal now. Let's let bygones be bygones. They probably will be fine.
They'll be all right. But John Butchergross tweeting out earlier today, somebody asked that question, a guy by the name of Dave Lewis, which is a name I've thought of a number of times today, unfortunately, thinking back to the Dave Lewis era Bruins. Saw that lineup the Bruins trotted out there today, and I said, I swear to God, this has to be the worst lineup they've trotted out since Dave Lewis, which is not a good feeling, not a good thought, but at least it was 20 years ago. But by the way, Ryan, I dare you right now.
Oh, no.
Name 2 Bruins in the middle 6 today. Do it. You were here. You were watching the game. Name 2 of them.
Patrick Brown.
No, he was on the 4th line.
Was he on the 4th line?
Yep.
Mark Kastelik?
4th line.
Oh, my God.
Name 2 Bruins.
Morgan Geekie?
1st line.
1st line.
Name 2 Bruins in the middle 6.
Where did
you were
they
0 for 3.
stick that kid that can't do the chin up, Casey Middlestead? Where did he get stuck?
There's one.
Was he one?
You got one.
Cole Koepke.
Number 2.
Okay. I just had to name 7 Bruins before I figured out 2 middle 6 guys, or 2nd, 3rd line guys.
Yep. There you go. That's the spot they're in right now. And you want that team to bring back Brad Marchand?
I don't.
No.
But I would not put it past the Bruins to at least have that on their radar at some point. I know it hurts now, Don. I get it. But, when the season's over and parades are had and all that stuff, and you're going, what do we do now? How do we address our captain? I would not be shocked if there was a phone call or a text message or some kind of exchange.
Emily Kaplan says they got to 3 years. John Butchergross said earlier today the Bruins offered 2 years around $3 million. He wanted 3 years. So if the Bruins did get to 3, they were then missing on the money, which is what Emily Kaplan said. I would not pay Brad Marchand $9 million over the next 3 years. I just wouldn't do it. I think the Bruins got this one right. 617-779-0985. Another guy getting a lot of money over the course of the next 3 years, Ronnie Stanley, and it is not from the New England Patriots. Major news for the Bats tonight. We will get into that next. No commercials, just the headlines here.
From the Town Fair Tires.
NFL before the Patriots lost out on their number one target. He heads back to Baltimore, 3 years, $44 million guaranteed. That's $60 million, but only pay attention to the guarantees in the NFL. And it feels like this thing is trending in the wrong direction for the Patriots already. Maybe it's an overreaction. Maybe I'm pressing the panic button too soon. This whole offseason where they're going to be aggressive, and I thought they were going to burn some cash last offseason, I'm not convinced they're going to deliver the way you want them to deliver, the way they need to deliver. I'm not convinced about it one bit. For a litany of factors. One, their willingness to spend money, which until they actually do, I will not believe that they'll do. I won't be fooled. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like the Patriots are going to go out and spend their $130 million or whatever they have in cap space. You know why they have $130 million in cap space? They had a ton of cap space last year, and they didn't spend any of it. And as a result, it's one of the many reasons the roster is not in the position that it should be. The Patriots have neglected the offensive line for years. Offensive linemen have moved this offseason. Joe Thuney was available. The Patriots did not get Joe Thuney for a song. At least in regards to draft pick compensation, you would have had to actually pay him. Now Ronnie Stanley gets paid. He goes back to Baltimore. It's a bad night. It's a bad night for the Patriots. Alex Barth was in here after Gasper and Murray today. Stuck around for the end of the Bruins game, and he was here when the Ronnie Stanley news went down, and he put it best. He said, Patriots fans in this town need to understand something. Left tackles don't become available. Wide receivers don't become available. The whole, hey, just sign a left tackle in free agency. Just sign a wide receiver in free agency. Folks, the good ones stay. Or the good ones go somewhere else where they get paid. And you have to be so aggressive to get players of this quality. And the Patriots have not upped their level of aggression. They have not drafted well at those positions in recent years. They haven't drafted well at wide receiver, forever, basically. Go back to Terry Glenn. We're talking, real high draft picks. Terry Glenn, Deion Branch, that's it. Edelman, of course, a late-round pick. Left tackle, offensive line in recent years has not been good enough. So if this is your plan, if your approach is, hey, you can just go out and sign Ronnie Stanley, or you can go out and sign player X, pick your favorite name. Favorite big name target this offseason. Well, you know what? Why not just go sign T. Higgins? Guys like that get franchise tagged. Hey, why not sign Ronnie Stanley? You'll be fine. Just sign Ronnie Stanley this offseason. Extended in Baltimore. Doesn't even make it to legal tampering. Doesn't make it to free agency. I need to stop hearing, just go sign X. It's not going to happen. It's not. That's not the way the world works. That's not the way this thing is. Especially when you're not willing to spend money. And you have established that now for years. You have a reputation as a team that does not want to spend, and you don't have the results on the field to back it up. You are not a desirable destination. So I'm just saying, over the course of the next week, do not get your hopes up. Don't do it. Because this is the first sign, and maybe it's not the first sign. There have probably been signs on this for a week, really going back to the combine, when you hear the Patriots talking about, pivoting. The pivot. One of my least favorite words in sports, pivot. Pivoting. Bad sign. Means things aren't going the way it's supposed to go or the way you want it to go. And now you have to pivot because your number one target is off the board. He didn't even get to the board. So maybe Cam Johnson does. And you can try and overpay for Cam Johnson, but does he want to come here? Or are there other tackle-needy teams that are going to beat you to the punch because they're going to be more aggressive than you? The Patriots need a lesson in aggression. And maybe it's taken them too long to get to this point where it's going to be really hard for them to land somebody. Forget the cap space. Forget all of this. Forget the desire. And everybody's, DK Metcalf feels like a perfect fit for there. Yeah, outside of the fact that he probably doesn't want to come here and they probably don't want to pay him. Other than that, he is a perfect fit. Ronnie Stanley would be a perfect fit for the Patriots. Yeah, except he doesn't want to come here because he went back to Baltimore. Because Baltimore's a better team and they paid him. What do you have to offer? Drake May isn't enough, folks. Mike Vrabel isn't enough. And I feel like in small part, that's been proven again here tonight with Ronnie Stanley staying in Baltimore. And I just fear we're going to get more stories like this over the next few days. Pick your favorite target. Who is it? Let me know. 617-779-0985. You going to land him? I have a hard time thinking you will. We continue. 617-779-0985. More on this, more on the Ronnie Stanley thing. Bruins, Celtics on the board as well. It's McCarthy on the Sports Hub.
You're listening to Matt McCarthy on the Sports Hub.
Craving authentic Italian cuisine? R2 has been serving up mouthwatering classics in the North End since 1992. Just minutes from the Garden, R2 is the perfect place to dine and drink before and after the game, with the kitchen open until 12:45 and the stunning granite bar open until 2. Stop by 6 Prince Street or at artuboston.com today. Are you still awake? Can't sleep? Apply for a research study for delayed sleep-wake phase disorder at Brigham and Women's Hospital. The study requires at least 4 in-person visits in Boston, Massachusetts over 2 months, and you may be eligible for up to $600. To find out if you're eligible, call 617-525-8657.
At CertaPro Painters, we know that a happy place comes in many colors, like ones that inspire a sense of wonder, or a new flavor that makes life just a little bit sweeter, or one to celebrate those moments that lift you to new heights. With thousands of 5-star reviews, you can trust us to bring happiness home. CertaPro Painters. That's painting happy. Each CertaPro Painters business is independently owned and operated. Contractor license and registration information is available at CertaPro.com.
Imperial Car's March In for Savings sales event is going on now with huge discounts across our entire inventory. We'll match your tax refund up to $1,000. Take advantage of discounts up to $15,000 or as much as 15% off MSRP and hundreds of vehicles priced under $20,000 and payments as low as $300 per month. We've got great leases and low finance rates too. Plus, we'll pay top dollar for your trade and every finance application will be accepted. Shop and compare 7 brands and thousands of new and used cars, trucks, and SUVs. Click ImperialCars.com.
Here's Boston defenseman Charlie McAvoy on treating his hair loss with Leonard Hair Transplant Associates.
Doc Lepresti stood out to me. He was super easy to talk to. Just seems like a guy, you go get a beer with. He definitely wasn't your normal doctor. You see a little bit of, yourself in him, and, he gets it, and right away it was just a great relationship, and he did unbelievable for me. I couldn't be happier with the work that he's done and how well he's treated me.
Call 1-800-GET-HAIR for a free in-person or virtual consultation.
Febreze. It's a classic odor tale. You fried fish for dinner, cleaned up, but the smell is still in the house. And the neighbors are coming over for game night. They're on their way. And then you spray Febreze Air Mist. Febreze Air starts working instantly to fight even your toughest odors, so you go from fish to fresh like that. Now, all you have to worry about is Pam cheating at charades.
Breathe happy, Febreze, la 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 la.
Coleman!
It's electric!
Your family's tripping. Kid puts a Pop-Tart in the toaster, he's tripping. Daughter turns on the hairdryer, she's tripping. You iron your pants, and you're tripping. Your entire family is tripping circuit breakers all over the house. Well, call Coleman Electric. Coleman believes no one should walk around with a raw Pop-Tart, wet hair, and wrinkled pants. You've got an unsafe case of circuit overload, and Coleman Electric will solve it. Like the outlet in your bedroom, it was wired back in '62 for an alarm clock and a lamp. But now it looks like you're running a power strip club. That's because today we plug in everything, even our car. Invite the electricians at Coleman Electric over, and we'll figure it out. Maybe upgrade your panel from a 100 to 200 amps, run new wiring, or whatever it takes to get all your circuits safe and up to snuff. Bottom line, just because they call them circuit breakers doesn't mean they're supposed.
and wide receiver. And I'd throw pass rusher in there too, two of the three biggest needs. Doesn't feel like anything's coming together for them at this point. As we sit here on Saturday night, leading into a week where everything goes down in the NFL. But that's a blow tonight, no doubt about it. That was a massive blow. To you, 617-779-0985. How about Connor in the car? What's up, Connor?
Hey, how's it going, Matt? I know there's a lot of buzz surrounding DK Metcalf recently. Another free agent I'm interested in, and I hope the Pats are too, and I just wanted to get your thoughts and opinion on T. Higgins coming to New England. Thanks.
He's been franchise tagged. Good luck. Because
It's
again,
always next year.
Yeah, no, but that's the thing is, what about getting this guy in free agency? What about getting that guy in free agency? They don't get there. You got to understand this, Patriots fans. The Stanley thing is more proof of it. The T. Higgins thing is more proof of it. They don't get there. Increasingly, the way business to me is done in the NFL is if you've got, and particularly at the wide receiver position, if you've got a guy you want, he's not getting the free agency, you have to trade for him. It's the way it has to be.
They have such a short shelf life in the NFL, too. Like, why would you want to let a talented receiver like that walk out the door when you might only have him at his best for 6, 7, maybe 8 years?
Because it's not the way the Patriots did business for 20 years. Nope. And they haven't been able to adjust to the way the business is done in the NFL now. You want a good, talented wide receiver, don't count on him being there in free agency. It's not going to happen. I mean, the amount of trees that have been killed and felled and cut down over the years, writing the T. Higgins to the Patriots stories. Guys, it's not happening. The amount of keyboards that have been worn out over Ronnie Stanley to the Patriots this offseason. It's not happening. He just re-signed. It's a waste of time. It's discouraging. It's demoralizing. But Alex Barth had it right as he was walking out of here tonight with his tail between his legs after the Patriots take another kick in the ass. He said, these guys don't become available. They just don't. And it's so true. They don't get to you. And if they ever do become available, chances are you're not going to get them because you haven't spent enough money and your team isn't good enough. For 20 years, the Patriots were a destination because of Tom Brady. They're not a destination anymore. So they can't get away with not spending money. Why do you think they have so much cap space? They don't want to spend it. And some guys won't even take it from here. Because it's not a desirable destination by NFL standards for a million reasons. And something tells me we're going to find that out again this week. You got cash to burn, cash to spend. A, do you want to spend it? B, are the players that you'd actually want to spend it on going to become available? And C, even if they actually do somehow become available, which is increasingly rare in the NFL, particularly at the wide receiver position, are they going to want to come here? And do you even want them? Joe Thuney should be a Patriot. That was obvious. That was easy. They didn't want him. And it's not because of the draft pick compensation, and I'm sure it's not because of the player that he is. They didn't want to pay. Which, to me, is a sign of what's to come. Let's say Ronnie Stanley actually did get to free agency. You think the Patriots would have paid him? Don't kid yourself. They would have brought him here on their terms, the way they've always operated. But what they haven't realized is the world's not on their terms anymore. It's easy to do it on your terms when you rule the world. And they don't rule the NFL the way they once did. And now all of a sudden they need to do it on everybody else's terms, and they haven't adjusted to that reality. And it puts them in a tough spot. I think tonight's news also affects the way they approach the draft and really the rest of the offseason. Feels to me like there's one other target who could be a left tackle for the Patriots in free agency. That's Cam Robinson. If you've got another guy, you can let me know at 617-779-0985. But with Stanley not hitting the market, you think a tackle-needy team like the Chiefs might be in on somebody like Cam Robinson, maybe willing to overpay? I mean, they've already moved on from Joe Thuney. They've saved that money there. Maybe they reallocate that to left tackle. Just spitballing. They were interested in Ronnie Stanley, too. Tonight's not a good night in Kansas City. It's an even worse night in Kansas City with Stanley going back to Baltimore. You think Cam Robinson would want to come here or want to go to Kansas City? Just asking you a question on that. You can determine your own answer. I think we all know what is a more desirable spot. Maybe here becomes more desirable the more money you offer. Are you willing to do that? I'm not convinced. So if you're not getting your starting left tackle via free agency, which when you really think about it is a rare thing to do, because it's like wide receiver, it's quarterback, it's cornerback. I mean, that is blue chip right there. You really have to draft and develop that guy. If you're not getting him through free agency, you need to look into the draft. And it turns out that this year that there are no real blue chip left tackles. There might be one in Will Campbell, and we don't know if he can play tackle because he has T-Rex arms. Rawr. Will Campbell. Rawr. Maybe he can play. There's been some reporting that the Patriots think he can play left tackle. Arm size be damned. They might have to try to find that out at this point, and that's a tough spot to be in. You could have, let's just say for the sake of discussion, that Stanley did become available in free agency and you get him, which we now know is not going to happen. But you could sign Ronnie Stanley and then still draft Will Campbell and see if he can play tackle. You can put him out at right tackle. And if he can't do that, then you say, well, at least we're getting a really good guard and we're really going to solidify our offensive line. Maybe it's too high at number 4, but at least you can make that argument. It puts the Patriots in a really tough spot. Really tough spot because the need is so glaring. It's their number one need. And you're probably drafting a kid in a spot he might not be able to play at number 4 overall because it just so happens that this is a year where there isn't that guy available. That's a really tough spot. And that's the trickle-down effect from Stanley going back to Baltimore tonight. Is, in some ways, does it almost force you to take Will Campbell? If you can't address left tackle through free agency, your choice is take Campbell at 4, knowing he might be a guard, and then you just spent the 4th overall pick on a guard, which is a really tough pill to swallow, or Vidarian Lowe and this year's version of Chuk Sakorafor. Whoever you can find out there, you name the guy. This year's version of, we think he can play left tackle in the NFL. That's a real tough spot to be in. So this year's version of Chuk Sakorafor or Mr. Rar himself, Will Campbell. Just waiting for the asteroid. The poor guy. Like the rest of us. Although I heard the chances of that have decreased to 0.04%. Something like that. So we can all, thank God, we can't have Will Campbell going extinct again. No wonder it was coming for us. They saw this guy, they saw the combine measurements, and they said, we gotta go for that planet again. Can't have those guys running out there. Long legs, short arms. Can't have it. 617-779-0985. How about Randy in Providence? What's up, Randy?
Hey, how's it going? The Ronnie Stanley news is obviously disappointing tonight. I don't think it's fair to say it's reflective of, the quarterback and coach can't pull people in because Kansas City was an option on his plate too, reportedly. So if a quarterback and coach is going to pull him away, probably those guys. But we were on the money end, right? But I think that throughout the rest of free agency, you've got to look at the Patriots to dominate what would normally be called like the second wave of free agency, right? And so kind of the mid-tier free agents. You look at Mike Vrabel, when he came to New England, he was part of a class of like 15 free agents in that year that were all kind of mid-tier character locker room guys. And why isn't he going to try and rebuild it like that again? So I think, along the offensive line, you look at Cam Robinson's the obvious left tackle answer, right? You've got to pay pay him and bring him in. But Jedrick Wills is an option. Patrick McCarry, also out of Baltimore. And then in the wide receiver room, a guy like Keenan Allen or Cooper Kupp who can come in and teach our young talent right now how to be professionals, how to approach the game. You always hear these players that talk about, when I came in, I had this seasoned vet that showed me how to study and how to be there and how to do the small things that you and I don't know about, And I think that we didn't have that guy specifically in our receiver room last year.
Randy, I'm going to let you go on that. One of the reasons I'm going to let you go is you referred to the receiver room as young talent, to which I would say, let's pump the brakes. They're young. They're young. Talent might be a bit of a stretch. You are not wrong, though, when you say that addressing the mid-tier of free agency is sometimes a good way to turn around a team. The Patriots did it in 2001. You're right, Mike Vrabel was a part of that. How about Washington last year? They didn't make too many big splashes, but they brought in the Bobby Wagners of the world who really helped turn that team around, and then Jaden Daniels went off and had a great rookie year, and there you are. You're in the NFC Championship game. That is no doubt a pathway for the Patriots. That being said, I think you are underselling just a little bit how important it is to have blue chip talent, real elite NFL talent at the most important positions. Left tackle, for having a young quarterback who we all feel good about, you need that guy for the next 10 years who is going to be protecting his blind side. You don't have that thing right now. Can you do better than you did last year? It's impossible. You would think it's impossible to do worse. I'm not going to say it's impossible because Elliott Wolf is still on the job. But you would think it'd be really hard to do worse. So can they build a better, more middling team? You hope. And that'll be a step in the right direction. And you can do that through mid-tier talent. No doubt about it. They should address that. But the blue chip stuff, which is all we've been talking about for the last, months at this point, but especially the last few weeks. Oh, Ronnie Stanley, he's the target. Now he's the number one guy you need. Well, T. Higgins, he's going to be a free agent. Oh, DK Metcalf would be a perfect fit here. Well, Metcalf doesn't want to come here. I keep hearing how he's not a fit for Josh McDaniels' offense. Ronnie Stanley re-signs, T. Higgins franchise tag. You're going to run down the list, and those big-time blue chip free agents that you want, that you lust after, they're not going to end up here. That's the way this thing works. I think I have reached the acceptance point. I'm not angry about it. It is what it is. They're not going to want you. You probably don't want them based on what they cost. And they probably don't become available in the first place because good players get locked up. Increasingly in the NFL, that's the way it works. You want a wide receiver? You got to trade for him. You can't wait for him to hit free agency. It's not going to happen. You want a left tackle? You better draft one because that guy's not hitting free agency. Ronnie Stanley's not hitting free agency. All right, you got the 4th overall pick. Great year to get a left tackle. Well, turns out the only left tackle you'd want to take at 4th overall has short arms. Okay, well, so you might be a guard. Will Campbell, 4th overall pick, guard. It's not great timing. Timing is everything in life, and this is the position you're in. 617-779-0985. Celtics thoughts coming your way. Patriots, Bruins, anything you want. It's McCarthy on the Sports Hub.
More Matt McCarthy on the way on the Sports Hub.
It's Maz for Window Nation. Don't miss your chance to take advantage of the buy two, get two free and pay nothing until 2027. The offer ends soon, only from Window Nation. Schedule your free estimate now at 866-90Nation or visit windownation.com.
Do you know the difference between diagnostic and preventative care? Preventative services detect or prevent health problems before you show symptoms. This may include screenings, lab tests, immunizations, or counseling, typically during your annual physical exam. Diagnostic care identifies or treats existing health problems, including evaluating new symptoms, monitoring risk factors, or following up on
about Porzingis?
I don't think so. I mean, at this point, we've seen him coming back from an injury, and I think with him, it's going to be a long process. We talked about in the preseason is that he was coming back from this injury, had a rehab, come back from it, and they're going to get him ready for the playoffs. And for a guy this tall too, we've seen it plenty of times with guys just like him. They fall down once and they get hurt, and they get hurt again, they get hurt again. So you want to maximize them for the playoffs. I don't have any problem with them sitting out tonight.
So I generally don't have a problem with them managing Porzingis either. You only get so many bullets with that guy. You want them coming in April, May, and June. Hell, they managed him last year, and you still didn't get much out of him in regards to playing time. When he played, he was great, and then he got hurt again in the finals with a freak injury, and managed to play through it in Game 5, which was a real testament to his toughness. I don't question his toughness one bit. I don't question his desire. I just question whether this guy is snake bit. What the hell is going on with this non-COVID related illness? How long has this guy been sick for? And I know everybody's been sick. Trust me, I've been there. It is not a good season. There's some weird stuff going on this season, this winter. It's weird. We had multiple times now where Porzingis was expected to be available, and then like minutes before the game, he gets scratched because of the illness. And then he's been listed on the injury report for, weeks now with this thing, and he's still out. I hope this is just their way of managing this, and I hope it's just their way of getting around the NBA injury report and, doing load management to the extreme. We're not going to play this guy, but I don't know. Given how many injuries he's had, would it surprise you if Kristaps Porzingis has been legitimately sick for the last few weeks and then something's just going on and it's weird and he can't play? So at what point do I start worrying that this illness actually is legitimate and it's going to impact him moving forward? And it's going to take him a while to come back or bounce back from whatever this thing is. I certainly hope it's not legit. I hope he's fine. I hope everything's good, and they're just managing him, and they don't want him playing in this game tonight because they don't want the Lakers getting a look at, what the Celtics look like, at their fully evolved form, with Kristaps Porzingis. They want them looking at the Charmander, not the Charizard, for you 90s kids out there. I hope that's what this is. But I don't know. I'm starting to get worried about this Porzingis thing. I'm starting to say something's not quite right here. An illness that takes you out for weeks at this point. Professional athlete with all the resources they have. It's not you where you get sick and then you have to wait in a waiting room for 3 hours at urgent care just trying to get an amoxicillin. For your ear infection or sinus infection or whatever the hell you got going on there. These guys get sick. They got them launched up with IVs. They got medications up the wall. They got everything. You get a cold, they're all over it. You got 17 of the best doctors in the world taking care of you because you are a professional athlete. He's been sick for weeks and he still can't play. What the hell is going on here? Now I'm starting to get worried. 617-779-0985. But Drew Holiday back tonight from the mallet finger. That is a question, said something about his toughness coming back from this thing because it really feels like it's going to be pain management. And obviously good news to get Holiday back out there for this game tonight, which should be a hell of a game. And we'll get you game ready here shortly. If you're heading into the Garden, we've got room for you. 617-779-0985. But Pete in the car. What's up, Pete?
Yeah, hey, I thought the last caller was pretty much spot on with the Patriots. They're going to be as bad as they've had a number of years bad drafts. This is a long rebuild. They're about 14, my estimation, 14 starters, 7 on each side of the ball, away from being even a good team. On offense, you're 3 offensive linemen, 2 wide receivers, a young tight end, and a running back away from being a decent offense. And on defense, you're 2 defensive linemen, an outside rush guy, a linebacker, a free safety, and a cornerback away. And the only way you're going to do that is through the draft. I had season tickets during the Bill Parcells, Scott Sequels, and Marion Butts years. And trust me, it wasn't until they started drafting Bledsoe and Coates and then the Ty Laws and Curtis Martins and Ted Johnson. So this is a long rebuild. Ronnie Stanley wasn't going to fix that. And DK Metcalf's not going to fix that.
Yeah, Pete, you're right. It starts at the draft, and thank God Elliot Wolf is still here running the draft. We all should feel very, very good about that. Omar and Braintree. Omar.
Hey, what's up?
How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good.
I just wanted to come on and say that Vidarian Lowe sucks.
Yep.
And I don't think that we should spend money on DK Metcalf.
Okay, there you go. Vidarian Lowe sucks, and we shouldn't spend money on DK Metcalf, which in a vacuum is a fine take. The only thing I'd say is, where else are you getting a star wide receiver, which you do need. So if you're not going to spend money on DK Metcalf for whatever reason that you may come up with, oh, he's not a fit, he's more of a physical freak, he doesn't run the routes. Yeah, but he's good. And you don't have anybody who's good. So if you say, hey, don't spend money on DK Metcalf, trade for X, I'm in. But again, the lesson of tonight is those guys rarely become available. And if they do, they're going to cost you a lot. You want a left tackle? You can't count on Ronnie Stanley getting to you because chances are he's not going to get to you. You want a wide receiver? And wide receivers become available pretty often in the NFL, once an offseason, twice an offseason via trade because they don't get to free agency and they all get paid at this point. Yet you can find an argument against any single wide receiver. Brandon Ayuk, any name who's come up here. Any guy who's been traded in recent years. A.J. Brown. Brandon Ayuk obviously wasn't traded, re-signed, you name it. DK Metcalf, Tyreek Hill. Like, you can find an argument against every one of these guys. And if you keep making the argument against all of them, you have Pop Douglas and Jalen Polk and Javon Baker, and that's your team. That's not good enough. 617-779-0985. How about Joe in the car? What's up, Joe?
Hey, it's actually Joe from the street team. What's going on, Matt?
Joe, what's up? How you doing?
So basically, this is what's happening. So Will Campbell, you have to think about it. If the Patriots are looking at it as we might as well just draft Campbell because he's probably better, even with his short arms, he's still probably better than the crap they have on their offensive line because to the previous caller's point, Vidarian Lowe, or as I call him, Vidarian Blows, you have Caden Wallace. And so even if Campbell can't play necessarily tackle, like he's still better than whatever they might have on their line. That's the first thing. The second thing is the whole notion that if you just tank for the season and your team's going to be bad, you're going to be fine because once you pick a guy in the draft, everything will work out. Well, we picked maybe not two. We picked a really bad year to be bad because there isn't really a surefire thing in this draft.
Yeah, Joe, I think you're spot on about that. Hey, no reason to address the offensive line. The team's going to suck anyway. Let's just get a high draft pick and draft an offensive lineman. Well, it turns out the offensive lineman at the top of the board has T-Rex arms. Childlike arms. Tiny Tim, as somebody in the YouTube chat said. Turns out you're drafting Tiny Tim to play left tackle. God bless us, everyone. As somebody goes right by him because his arms are too short. Rawr. Yeah, bad year to suck. Your whole point is, let's choose to suck. Well, you better pick a good year to suck instead of a bad year to suck because you never know. You never know how those two things are going to line up. How about Tarek in Boston? Tarek.
Hey, I kind of wanted to quell your fears a little bit about Porzingis.
Okay.
What do we know, right? He's upright, right? He was at the game. He's out and about. He's smiling. So we know and he's around his teammates, so you know he's not contagious. So usually, I mean, I could be wrong, but I know from my own experience, you have a virus and sometimes it gets in your inner ear. The virus itself is dead. It's gone. You're not sick anymore. But every time you look up, you get vertigo and your room starts spinning. I could see he pulled out of layup lines twice. So that could be him looking up at the hoop and then realizing he's getting dizzy and then they pull him. So I don't think it's anything big. He wouldn't have been at the game if it was anything really serious. So I'm assuming that that's it.
There we go. Tarek in Boston says Kristaps Porzingis has an ear infection. Which I will say, ear infections are a pain. I had an ear infection a few weeks ago. I'm still not right. Get that amoxicillin. Sometimes it doesn't knock the full thing out. He's getting vertigo with it. I didn't get that. But, based on Tarek's experience, he says, Porzingis, ear infection, no problems. Based on the Matt McCarthy experience with the ear infection, I probably could have played an NBA game. But then again, that's my only limiting factor, though, as to why I'm not playing in the NBA. It's just, prone to ear infections. What can I say? I don't know, man. It's been out for weeks. I hope you're right. He's been out for weeks. We get game ready for the Celtics and the Lakers. This is a big one tonight at the Garden. We'll do it next.
Stay tuned for more Matt McCarthy on the Sports Hub.
Town.
NBA and, guys not playing. And one of the many reasons why I think the product is struggling and why I think ratings are down across the league is because the regular season is mostly worthless and guys don't play and there's too much load management and all that. You get none of that tonight. A true statement game for both of these teams. And make no mistake about it, this is more of a statement game for the Lakers. The Celtics are the defending champions, and let's not lose sight of that. This game is more important for the Lakers than it is for the Celtics. The Lakers have obviously been really good since trading for Luka. They have all the buzz. They're the story of the NBA right now. LeBron, Luka, are they legitimate title contenders? Can they come out of the West? And the West certainly has a lot more to offer than the Eastern Conference, and the Celtics should be waiting for whoever comes out of the West. And if it's the Lakers, and it's LeBron on the Lakers and Luka on the Lakers against the Celtics, I mean, that is the NBA's dream right there. You want to talk about ratings going up? There you have it. Celtics, Lakers, Luka, now a part of the whole thing. LeBron, that is the NBA's dream. And if they're massaging results, I would not rule it out that you get that matchup in June. This is a legitimate potential finals matchup and finals preview tonight. Damn, that's good stuff. That's good eating. This is what you live for as a sports fan, and we will be here after the game to break it down with Grandy and Max coming your way shortly. Statement night for the Lakers, but also a statement night for the Celtics to prove that they are still the champs. Send the message to the rest of the league that they are still the champs. This is good stuff right here. Sam Hauser, available. Drew Holiday, available. Kristaps Porzingis, out tonight for the Celtics. Should be good stuff. Thanks to Ryan Garvin and Jake Seymour for all their hard work tonight. I'm Matt McCarthy. Enjoy the game. Grandy and Max, Celtics tonight coming up next. See ya.